Welcome to the Industrial Edge podcast with me, Joe Haggis. In this podcast, we sit down with a broad range of professionals that are involved in a wide range of industrial settings. From maintenance and reliability professionals, facility managers, engineers, through to operations and production leaders, consultants and business owners who support all things that keep the modern world we live in safe, productive and efficient. We discuss the unique stories our guests have been on personally, while getting into some of the deeper details, challenges and opportunities that face them in their particular industries and areas of specialisation. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome, first of all, we've got Luke Grice-Lowe. Luke is the Director of International Business Development at Multisensor AI. Luke, we worked together for a couple of years. I know we didn't work directly together. We were in the same engineering team, right? Great to have you on, mate. I know we've not spoken in a while. It's been 6 years since I moved to Australia, and you've just recently left Amazon, right? After just over 9 years with them, nearly 10 years, I think. Is that right?
Just short of 9 years.
Nice. Yeah, good stint with Amazon. And I suppose similar to me, right? I was in the military, in the Air Force, and you in the Army previously as well. We spent a lot of time at Amazon between us, and have both recently left Amazon in the past, like you say, past sort of 6 months as well. So we're kind of following the same sort of path in terms of military, Amazon, and then the different business, right? But mate, give us a bit of Luke, give us a career overview, who you are. You're starting out in the, like I said, you were in the Army. Talk us about those early days in the Army, and then a bit of overview about your time on Amazon, and then also now you're with Multisensor AI.
Yes, it's been a long career, and I'm not that old. So I think when I left school, it was the military. The only way to go forward straight out of school was join the military. I ended up joining the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers as a weapons engineer. Went all over the world, did all the things that the military bags with, through that culture. And I think one of the key things that kind of drew me to Amazon after I left, because I did actually work for 2 other places in between, but it wasn't the right fit. Everyone knows when you leave the military, you're looking for that. What's that next big picture? What's that next? Where do I belong? And I just didn't quite feel it. Went with Amazon, and they had a very pro ex-military hiring policy at the time. So when you actually first walked in the building, I think at one point 60% of Man 1 was ex-military, all from the same backgrounds, whether it be RAF, Navy, Army. So it was pretty much a tri-nation site or tri-service site. Then I kind of started meeting some of the new faces, the way to look at engineering from an industrial point of view, corporate structure, which, to be honest, even in the military time, when you look at reliability, everything was there. You were doing non-destructive testing, you were doing, gauging, condition monitoring, records of rounds fired, all that type of stuff. So I found it an easy transition when we looked at reliability and maintenance at Amazon, because military's done it for years. We just didn't call it what everyone else was calling it on Civvy Street. And then all of a sudden, it kind of clicked. I found my little niche. I hunkered down in that corner, learned what I can, took all the wisdom that I could from, some of the big figures we were working with at the time. I'm pretty sure they won't mind me mentioning the Ian Arches, the David Fryers, and Chris Rutters of the world. And I fell in love with it. And then eventually I progressed from, the normal technician roles into shift seniors, and then into the condition monitoring days reliability team. And then got invited to join the global reliability team, and looked at, building condition monitoring programs on scale, ultrasound, thermography, oil analysis, vibration, and deployed them literally all across the world. I don't think there's an Amazon site in existence that doesn't have one of my programs or technologies in it.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is nice.
It is.
And then pretty much got to a point where I felt it was time for a change. I'd pretty much learned everything I wanted to learn. I needed a new challenge, and we've proven these programs out with the multi-million pound contracts and deals, and it's like, can we go and do it with someone else and actually service mums and pops companies? Do you have to have a £1 billion structure to do these programs? The easy answer is no, you don't. And if you target it, then you can do whatever you use. I think the most important thing when we look at reliability programs and maintenance programs is, if it's not targeted, you're throwing money at the wall and hoping something sticks. That pretty much brings me up to today, so I ended up joining Multisensor AI. We are very much a multi-sensor approach, so not just one technology. We want to look across the full P to F curve, understand what's going on, the full asset condition management, I think the best term of it. So we're putting the right people in the right place, on the right asset, at the right time.
Yeah, good. No, it's good. I think it's a good journey as well, right? Like you say, I think when I reflect back on my time, I think, like you say, 60% of people were ex-military at the time. And I think that was good, right? As part of a team, that was a great team to be a part of. I remember as well, like, it was a very reactive site at the start of when I joined there. I joined a little bit after than you did when you launched the building, probably a year after, but it was still, there was a lot of new buildings going up, very reactive. And that, for me, that really sparked like my interest in reliability, should we say, and like, there's got to be a better way of doing things, right? Very reactive, and obviously all that comes around with that ultimately. Yeah.
It's definitely interesting, because if you look at like the kind of Amazon, structure and churn and high tempo, I think having that, hiring, a lot of military at a time during a launch building, that there is that very what's a military character-esque, where you're mucking together, it's all crap, if nothing works, oh well, we'll whinge about it, but you get on with it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not moaning, you're not enjoying yourself, and that's kind of the phrase. I remember when I turned up in 2016, not having an idea what's going on. You walk into the site, can't see anyone, site's huge, all equipment's still going up, and you're literally walking around trying to find people, and then all of a sudden you see in the corner of a building like 20 technicians sat together, huddled around a pizza, going, what do we do? And then all of a sudden an Excel sheet gets passed around, going, well, that's what we got to do. So when I started, the maintenance strategy and almost the CMMS was an Excel sheet.
Nice. Yeah, it's come a long way, right? And I think probably talk into that a little bit later on, but I think, Amazon's definitely matured from it, had been on its own journey, right? Big business, growing business. It went on its own journey. I'm sure, like I say, I wasn't in the UK or Europe for 6 years. We went on our own journey here in Australia, right? From 2 sites to 25 that I think it is now. But we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But it's it's interesting, right? And like you say, there was a lot of good people around, right? You mentioned a few names there. There was a lot of good people. I learned a lot off many people at Amazon, and yeah, it's it was good. It was good. Luke, talk us through Multisensor AI. I've obviously been looking at the business and understanding, what you do as a company. Talk us through Multisensor AI, what you do. As I understand it, it's it's a software system that sits, let's say, in the back. I've heard you speak as well on a few videos around try to challenge the way traditional CMMSs are sort of built. Talk us through, the business, what that looks like, mate.
Yeah, so part of the appeal for myself joining Multisensor AI is I've worked across a lot of different technologies. When you selected these technologies and deployed them on a global scale, you do a hell of a lot of testing. It's not, oh, that sales guy really sounded good, I'm gonna take his technology. We bought a lot of technologies that did not work out. But one thing that really sat with me, especially when you've got like over 12,000 users across the world, different languages, different cultures, it was always the platform that I found the stumbling block. And it was always, right, we've got an ultrasound program, they've got their platform. We've got a thermal program, they've got their platform. and all the data started to become siloed. So if you were trying to do, something as simple as comparative analysis, technicians there for like 30, 40 clicks trying to understand where everything is, trying to find all this information. So I think when Multisensor AI kind of laid out the vision for a single platform that hosts all the data, the aggregation, and almost we're not there yet, but the target is to be sensor agnostic. I don't care whether you want to use our sensors, your own sensors, you've already invested. Great, you're doing the right things. But at the same time, it's almost that reliability partner, because even when you do the right things, it doesn't mean exactly it's executing for the right problem. And I've got a perfect example, actually. So when we moved to live thermal monitoring at Amazon, we were doing the right things. We had vibration programs. We had, handheld routed thermal programs. We did all this. And when we did a cost analysis and actually what was going on, between that frequency of inspection and then thermal routes, we missed 20,000 events in a year. And that was purely because frequency of inspection didn't match the failure mode or that P to F interval. So live thermal was the only way to go, because they're not about to give you a 4x on your head count. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, spot on. I think, interesting you say, right? I think being sensor agnostic, I think that's pretty unique, right? In regards of, you see a lot of industry, well, a lot of companies out there, they try to promote the products, the sensors, shall we say, but they'll tie you down to that system to use as well, right? And that is something that I'm facing currently in the business I'm in, is when we have loads of different systems, sometimes not speaking to each other. It's challenging, right? And it becomes siloed. It's not integrated. You can't learn off it as well. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear.
I've always found it that the sensors at the end of the day are enablement. They make the software work. Without the sensor, the software doesn't work. The software without the sensor without a software, that it's the same pattern. So they have to work in hand, but it's almost moving away from, I'm going to sell hardware or I'm going to sell software. You sell a solution, you target it to what a customer's problem is and what's going on at their site. Engineers are very emotive. We make decisions because something's getting on our nerves, or I'm fed up of doing the same job over and over again. We don't want to spend money. We don't want to go out and create multi-million-pound programs and all that stuff. We do it because we want to make lives easier. First one, very emotive. I'm fed up. Technicians are fed up. And that's where you start getting into human capital management. So how do we ensure retention, high skill training, all that type of stuff? But then you've also got the business goals, right? Can I improve, the reliability, uptime, and all that good stuff? So there's a lot of caveats, and it's kind of where we spin it at the same time, because we want to be your reliability partner at the same time. We want to take you through a maintenance journey, but we don't want to just plug you loads of hardware, because it makes no sense. It's all about earning trust. If you're successful, we're successful, so we can get successful together.
You spot on with the solutions, right? The solutions focus. I think that's the best way to approach any business in regards of, you're not just trying to fit the square peg in the round hole with a solution that you've got off the shelf. You try to go at it with a solutions mindset, shall we say? And again, it sounds like the system there. Talk us through like the specifics, like in regards of like multi-sensor AI, like that system, the Connect system, I think it's that you've got. Talk us through that, and like how does that? What would that look like for someone, a maintenance manager looking at that?
So I think if you actually look at the easiest way to explain it, are you familiar with Reliability Web and their IoT framework?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So if we kind of spin that into a condition monitoring point of view, right, your source becomes your sensor. So, we've got thermal, vibration, all the sensors that are out there, like acoustic, ultrasound, oil analysis sensors are out there now.
Yeah.
The idea then is that when you move through that framework, you've then got a decision, right? How do we connect it all? So, right, do we go on-prem? Do we go gateway? Do we do direct wire? Do we do edge compute? Do we do cloud compute? What? And it starts building the program for you. Eventually you're in collect. So where am I going to collect all that information? To be honest, the expansion in the last 4 or 5 years of cloud storage and all that stuff, making it more cost effective for large data packets. Because, if we looked at thermography, live radiometric video, it's heavy. You can't transfer that through a Bluetooth gateway. It's not going to happen. So you need that hardwired real-time data management. If you've got a Bluetooth sensor, it needs an offline, because it's only sending a measurement every hour. Are you really bothered with it being real time? No. 5-6 minutes delay here and there isn't going to make a massive issue. And I'm a firm believer, if you've got to respond in less than 3 hours, then something big is going wrong. There has to be that time to manage and plan and actually execute a job correctly and safely. Then when you start moving in, past your collection method, cloud, on-prem, you get into your analysis. So how do we get all that data? Do we use LLM and natural language programming? Do we use a chatbot assistant for generate reports, or do you have a dashboard? So there's loads of things that you can do around the analysis side, depending on the technology, what your failure mode is, what your P2F interval is. And that's pretty much then when you get to the do, or the output of what you want all them systems to do. And that's whether it's, an integration. Can we create a work order via API into your CMMS system? So we're not duplicating admin. First of all, if it's easy, streamlined, then we're going to reduce human error, because we're not trying to duplicate. You write one thing, then I've got to rewrite it. Someone else is rewriting it, and before you know it, you've got 6 different faults for the same thing. Do you want to do a guided remedy kind of chatbot? Use NLP and go across all your data manuals and go, right, how do I track? Right, track. Okay, cool, great. That's how I do the tracking. It's already, instead of you flicking through a manual or doing the search through a PDF, it's boom, I've got the snippet of exactly what you need. Can you do assisted diagnosis? So Bluetooth sensor or ultrasound, like pretty much, auto lubrication programs using another technology and a confirmation. Can you reduce your scheduled frequency? Can you reduce your PM checklist by automating, 10-20% of your checks? It's all them different things that actually build a return of investment for the program you're trying to deploy.
Yeah, spot on. And you pick up on a couple of things you said there, especially around like I'm not sure the phrasing you used, but again, the sort of chatbot integration with a technician, give me, I'm thinking a technician's there, talk to me about the health of this equipment, what are the past failures on it, and instead of having to go through the CMMS, should we say, and manually look for that data, you can talk back and forth with let's say a chatbot, or whether what that may be, right? That's interesting.
And it's pretty much where the industry is. If we look at, I see it as a screwdriver. I know there's a lot of conversation at the minute around like AI replacing jobs, making things easier, use less labor. It's not, we didn't start firing people when, you went from screwdrivers to impact drivers. No, you made the job quicker so they could be more effective with labor. And I see it the exact same way. It's a tool in the technician's tool bag. It's not a replacement. It's not a headcount cutting exercise. It's none of that stuff. It's, even if we looked at like thermography, ultrasound, vibration, these are all sensory checks enhanced through technology. But we never got rid of sensory checks. We still do them, visually check, tracking, alignment, all that type of stuff. All we did with technology is we quantified it to take away that ambiguous, interpretation.
Yeah. Made it more objective, right? Yeah. As opposed to being subjective. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, spot on. No, it's good. It's some interesting things you're mentioning there, right? I'm listening intently, mate, in regards of like, again, I suppose the possibilities of what can be done and what is being done right now, right? It's moving quick, right? Talk us through. I've got a couple of questions here around condition monitoring, should we say? I've got a question here around, Luke, handheld condition monitoring devices. I've put, they're not dead, are they? I don't think they are, but what are your thoughts on will they be replaced over time? Obviously we both know many businesses aren't even using handheld condition monitoring, never mind preventative or reactive. They're in a reactive state altogether. But what do you see the future of condition monitoring being less handheld devices, more remote monitoring, or what does that look like?
It's two heads of the same coin. It purely depends on what your maintenance strategy is out to achieve. Like, if we actually go back to the bare bones of it, what's your criticality assessment? Have you done that first? Have you got FMEA for your critical equipment? So do you understand where your failures could come from? What detection methods are needed? Where are you spending your labor? Is your labor too precious that actually I can't afford to have people going around collecting data? I run a few exercises over the years on what progression looks like in terms of handheld. I don't think it ever goes away. It can't go away because it's a great confirmation tool. However, I think it can go two ways. We make it cheaper so it becomes a common tool bag tool. So when people turn up, they've got a thermal camera in the bag, they can have a quick look. So it becomes that ad hoc, almost non-rooted, right, let's just have a gander, see what we can see. Or it goes, right, I'm going to install a sensor that does it live, and then I'm going to use my handheld to go and confirm home in where it is. So when we look at like a multi-sensor approach, it's all about reducing the diagnosis path. If we had current monitoring set up, current monitoring's there, all of a sudden we have a trigger or an alert come in. A technician's going, right, is it mechanical, is it electrical? But I can't make that decision purely off what's going on with that current alert. However, if I have a vibration alert as well, I know for a fact that it can only be mechanical, because now electrical faults don't cause vibration. So it's pretty straightforward. I've halved my diagnosis path. And then you can actually start getting into the science and principles of the technologies themselves. So, vibration tends to attenuate over a distance of 900 mil, as long as if there's no like media breaks or, there's a good attenuation path. So I know now I'm looking at everything within this section. And if it's not in that section, that's because it's really, really strong, really intense. I'm in the visible and audible at this point then. So I should be able to see if it's not coming from that area.
And
then you get to your thermographies and your ultrasound, and it's from source. It can only be in that place. So straight away now I'm in component level diagnosis.
You mentioned as well, right, before as well, to pick up on that distance between potential failure and failure, right? And obviously that depends on the piece of equipment that you're looking at. And I think it's interesting, like you say, explaining through when you have those different bits of information coming from different sensors, use current monitoring example, vibration, you're starting to really reduce down what the possibilities or what the fault is going to be, right? And again, you're giving more information and you're making it easier for a technician to not be thinking, well, we think it's this, we think it's that. You're making that easier, right? That decision making ability of what's going on.
There's also a big problem I've come across numerous times, especially when you start looking at like data scientists and data research, and is when do you stop? How far do you need to take it?
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest arguments I've had over the years with data scientists, machine learning, all that stuff is at some point you've got to draw a line and go, that's far enough. Let the experience of the technician take over, because otherwise you go too far. What you do is create tunnel vision and confusion. Because you're telling me it's this, and guess what? It's about 6 miles down the road in a complete different factory. What are you on about? This ain't right. So there's that sweet spot of having the confidence on when to stop with the data and let experience take over.
Yeah, good, mate. I think it's interesting you say that, right? Around like, how far do you go ultimately? How, you can collect as much data as you want. I always remember, you've probably seen the image. There's a really good image that's, data collected. It's just Lego sprayed out on the ground. Data put together, should we say? It starts building this picture out, and then you've got a data story, sort of going through those steps. Like you can collect as much data as you want, but like you say, there's got to be a point where you say, like, let's stop, or what's it actually? If you're collecting, let's say, 1,000 data points, you collect another 1,000. Is it actually going to be telling you anything different than you already know? Possibly, possibly not. But it's interesting that you say that. There's got to be a point where you stop and allow experience and people's the human to take over, right?
I think the problem comes when you're so data rich and you're wisdom poor.
Yeah.
a lot of the, I know we've ran into this problem. There was houses and houses of data you got your hand in, but no one knew what to do with it or how to interpret it. And then you sit down with, the data scientists and whatnot. They've never been on the shop floor. They've never taken the equipment apart. In maintenance, it's not always simple math. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. For some illogical reason, 1 + 1 could be 16, but you got to figure out why it's become 16.
You're spot on. It's good though, right? It's an interesting thought that though. I've never really thought it like that. At some point you've got to stop, like you say, and again, it's an interesting thought pattern. I've got another question here, Luke, is around what are the drawbacks, maybe, and again, I think you've already answered it. To be fair, it depends on your strategy, right? Your maintenance strategy. But what are the drawbacks of maybe businesses adopting a remote sensor only sort of approach? That's a bit of a one-dimensional question, but what are the drawbacks of just going remote sensor only and going away from those handheld condition monitoring devices to kind of counter that question?
It's a weird one, because I always think if you can justify it and you've got a return on investment and it's proven and you go through a cost analysis, right, there shouldn't be any drawback. I think the biggest drawback we find now is educational and finance running engineering departments. Liability is a stakeholder culture. It's not one person, not one team, not one program. It's everyone within the business driving towards one thing. So if you don't have that alignment throughout your whole business structure, finance, HR, engineering, ops, you're off to a loss straight away, because then what you've got is, right, finance has his goal and he needs to reduce, 10 million this year. But actually engineering's got a goal and I can save you that 10 million, but I need to spend 5 to get there. So you run to a 2-year. And then you've got all the HR coming and go, engineers are frustrated. They're leaving left, right, and centre because they're just banging their heads against a wall. So now you're spending actually another 6 million in recruitment, additional wages, sign-on fees, and it's a nasty spiral. So if we consider reliability not such as something you can deploy, but as a culture, and you get that culture right where everyone's pulling in the same business direction, you shouldn't have any problems. But not everyone sees the world in my nice little clean, fluffy, bright tunnel vision.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, right? Because everyone, whether that be those different departments you mentioned, right? Whether that's finance, HR, everyone's got their own goals and targets. And if ultimately, if there's not enough support at the top, right, then it becomes challenging to implement that reliability culture, like you say. In a business, and it depends, whatever you're doing ultimately, if everyone's not swimming in the same direction and aligned on that, that's when it becomes, and that's when you see that frustration, right? When you see maintenance teams, engineering teams become frustrated because, again, the misaligned with the business objective at a higher level, right? Yeah.
We used to get a lot of pushback, Amazon saying condition monitoring was snake oil and that. And again, it was an educational piece when we found it out, because, they go, well, for example, we could use Monotron miss this. Well, Monotron's not designed to capture that. Monotron was designed for rotational parts. It was a 3-axis accelerator. It needed to be rotational. Yeah, but a bolt fell out. But yeah, but where was the bolt? It was nowhere near. It was on a complete different equipment. Didn't have much. So there's always that level of understanding of the science of principles of what the technology is designed to do. So when you look through your failure modes and your P2F curve, imagine drawing a P2F curve for every single failure mode you've got, because you can't do all analysis on electrical faults. You can't. So when you look at that P2F curve as a standard function and a highlighted function, you've almost got to tailor it and go, well, actually, we look at belt tracking. Belt tracking causes friction. So I know the quickest way I can see that is through thermal and live monitoring. And as it progresses, I'll probably get some vibration. I'll probably get some current load as well. But thermal could be right low down if I'm looking at a bearing compared to ultrasound and vibration. But if I were looking at belt tracking, it completely swaps around. And it was an interesting conversation I had with one of my counterparts at Multisensor. how do you get that across when you get the kickback going, well, I already do this? Like, yeah, okay, you do this, but is there something better, or can we partner it with something to give you better information to get you closer to a decision?
Yes,
because even when you look at AI is not there to take the decision away. It's there to aid the decision. You still have to make a decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, spot on. And I think, from what I've read in and interested in, like reliability center maintenance, that is still probably the gold standard, should we say, of a maintenance strategy. Many businesses, and I think I hope you'll agree with me on this. It's actually implementing RCM, should we say? Too many businesses try and do it, blanket approach. It was talked about at Amazon. I know for whilst I was there for 8 years, it was spoke about. I think we were actually part of it. Thinking back, we were actually part of a group when we started doing an RCM facilitation group, and for a few different reasons that didn't continue, but that's still the standard, should we say? And again, you do RCM well, don't apply it on the right assets, apply it on your right criticality of assets. That will give you and guide you to the right condition monitoring strategies, right? Is that fair to say?
100% agree. But again, it depends on the use case. So if we looked at, Amazon being such a fast place, is it the right place for RCM? Because when we did that facilitation group, I had a timeline of 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and they wanted to see a result. Like, well, what are you doing in 2 weeks? Half the people were on a sewer shift pattern, so you ain't going to see them in 2 weeks. It's also managing expectations on what you're expecting. So one of the things I like to do now is, if we sent out a demo unit, what are you expecting to see in a month demo? Because you're not gonna capture 20 faults in a month, then extrapolate that and go, right, for the year I'm going to do this. It's not. You still have to go back and look through your historical trends, understand where that gaps are. So if you just go with the absolute world's expectations, this is going to be right first time, you got no chance. You're setting yourself up to fail from day one.
Yeah, spot on. And I think, like, the theme, I had a few conversations already now. The theme constantly is looking ahead, right? Taking a long-term view of things. It's a critical part of making sure you're taking the right approach for your business, looking long-term. I know it's much easier to say that when we're at Amazon, right? They have deep pockets. They naturally take a long-term view on things most of the time. Like that is the key, right? Taking that long-term approach. And yeah, what is your objective at the end of the day as a business, right? That's good.
I think they used to do it really well. Back in the early days, was fail fast, fail forward. You had the freedom to try things and figure it out, and if it failed, it failed. But it wasn't a failure. You just knew that it wasn't the right solution. Right? So you've got an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, you spot on. No, it's good. But I was I've put and I've already mentioned it as well, right? Like when I left the UK from Amazon, we were starting to put those handheld routes in, right, with CBM, etc. Talk us through like the maturity you saw of Amazon as an organization from when you joined 9 years ago, 9.5 years ago, to when you left as a senior reliability engineer. From my perspective, they really went on a journey, right, in terms of the reliability journey. But I'd love to know it from your perspective, especially because you were in that reliability team, that global reliability team. Talk us through that.
Do you know what? It's really interesting. I was thinking about this the other day because I was doing a presentation prep of basically how apprenticeships can aid your career, and it's not just a one-stop shop that doesn't really go anywhere, C-suite level and all that type of stuff. And I was writing down my career path for a high school to go through this presentation and engineering apprenticeships and all that type of stuff. Because obviously through the military, it's mainly apprenticeships if you're in the army, because we're the lower levels. You don't want to be giving us degrees. But anyway,
I was the same, mate. I was an apprenticeship as well, mate, in the area.
So as we kind of went through it, do you know when you have a fading memory in the back of your head and you go, oh yeah, I did that? When Ian Arch first joined, he started the first reliability team within an Amazon building at Man 1, which then he moved on to make into a global, corporate central team. And you look at the journey as it's gone through and everything we've done, learned over the years. That global team started off with 2 people. And I did the 2 people's first site tours when they turned up, and I was just the senior tech at Man 1. And it's crazy to see where they've gone, where they've come from. But there was a lot of blurred lines as well. So it weren't so much like, what they see today versus what we had in the past. Because if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going.
Yes.
And when you're constantly hiring in new talent and the turnover, you grey a lot of the area. You lose a lot of the stability. So it didn't always go well. I think the turning point is when we actually started looking into condition monitoring. We made mistakes early on, trying to. These were big programs. Condition monitoring wasn't being scaled like this within, hundreds of sites, hundreds of thousands of assets. We looked at ultrasound. At one point, we had millions of touch points across a DMS, and it was crazy when you looked at the actual scale. But we were teaching deployment. So, right, you put a test point here, you put a test point there. This is your route. These are your guardrails. Instead of actually, where we changed is when Monitron came out. We taught the science and principles. We didn't tell you where to stick it. I didn't want to tell you where to stick it.
Yeah, nice.
Because I wanted it to grow naturally. And that's kind of where it twigged. It was like, well, look, you can't do this journey on your own. You've got to bring everyone along with you. Because if you don't all learn at the same time, you'll get to a point where it'll just be questions like, can I stick one here? You're asking me for, mate? You know your equipment better than me. I'm sat in an office trying to figure this out. You'll know exactly where your pain points are. Oh, it's not my critical one. But should it be? Do you want to reassess your criticality? Because if you're asking me this question, then you've got a doubt. Trust yourself. Go for it.
I love that, mate. I think that's it's good, right? You've gone from, like you say, maybe thinking, oh, how do we scale this? How do we deploy it? And going from that sort of mindset, maybe of, we need to go around and deploy this at every single site, to like you say, right, education, upskilling people, understanding the science and the theory behind it, right? I think it's important because without that, like you say, if you make it, you put this sensor here, and obviously you can give guidance, right, etc. But it's for each site, and all sites were evolving over time, right? And the technology was evolving very quickly. They've got to take ownership, and like you say, no one knows the site better than the maintenance team there. Ultimately, I think that's a really good sort of way of looking at it, right? Again, of going from that the deployment mindset versus actually teaching and challenging people to make the right decisions themselves, right? Yeah, it's good.
One of my favorite metrics we ever used to report was the training side, as well as good as we looked at all the downtime and the lost production hours and then cost avoidance, cost assumption. One of my favorite ones was actually looking at, right, how many technicians had done the Cat 1? How many technicians had done the Cat 2? Are we at 50%? Are we at 100% training across this global landscape? Because I was always a firm believer in, well, do we want to pay for training? Hell yeah, we do. He was like, well, what if they leave? I was like, what if they stay? But if they leave better than they came, and then that's a recruiting tool, because when I went to Amazon, I got all these qualifications. That's great. Someone else might go, well, I want them opportunities, and they come in super keen, wanting to do it. High will, low skill, take it all day long. We can train skill. I can't change your motivations.
I love that. I actually, something I did. I was the maintenance manager at the Brisbane site. Had a small team, much smaller sites in, some of the sites much smaller in Australia. Had a team of 11, right? And I said to everyone, you can have $5,000, £2,500 each year to spend on training as much as you want. I think, and I made it really clear, and they're all really excited, went away, a few of them got really excited, started looking at courses. And then literally, I think I checked in maybe 6 months or 12 months later, I think maybe 2 people had spent the budget. The point I'm making here, right, is you've got to make the budget available, but you've also got to explain to people why, what's the benefit of doing that training, why we need that experience, why we need that training. And yeah, like you say, take will over skill every day of the week, right? And people that are willing and interested to go and do those courses will become your CBM expert, and they'll bring people on the journey with them, right? I think that's definitely the case. Yeah, good.
I think it's a perfect example. So what you said there is, if you give them the budget and you give them the time to do it, and then if you sit there from like a program management point of view and you're constantly having to kick back, arguments, hearsay, anecdotes, not so much a data-driven approach to what they're saying. Well, actually, what you've done is you've just built an army of champions, and they'll make that argument from the ground level up, and eventually that so many voices can't be silenced and so many people can't be wrong.
Yeah, spot on. No, it's good, mate. It's good. Luke, we're getting to time. I'm going to ask maybe one last question. Very general one, mate, to start wrapping up, but just around tensions, challenges within, let's say, reliability industry. What do you see as the biggest challenge, for you in and the business that you're in now? What's the biggest challenge that you face in the next few years? Things are moving quickly. Your business it's got AI in the name, right? So that is evolving fast. What's the biggest challenge you've got coming up, mate?
There's plenty of challenges in the industry as a whole. We can get political. We can look at supply chain issues. We can go as deep as that, or you can go, right, everyone's cost aware and cost conscious. So are they going to start changing the maintenance strategy? Because in a lot of businesses, maintenance is seen as a necessary evil. No one wants to be paying for maintenance because it's not giving you any production. It's not giving you anything that's going to make you a net value. So are they going to go back to reactive and just accept the losses? And is it more cost effective to use, run to failure? I think, run to failure is a valid strategy when applied to the right equipment.
Completely agree.
But at the same time, you get technology advances. Like, even when we were at Amazon, we'd deploy a technology, but it'd take that long to globally scale it. By the time it was deployed, it was obsolete. It moved so quick. So how do you stay in front of that curve? How do you stay not so much chasing the curve? How do you become the curve? And that's kind of where we're at now. And when we look at, what we're going to do in 2026 and how we stay ahead of the, to give the customer the best approach they can do with all these other non-engineering variables, let's call them. Where do we go? What do we do? And when do we do it?
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned good one there, right? Like, again, cost is always a challenge, right? And it's always something that's ever present. It feels like more and more at the moment. But yeah. Luke, anything else you want to add in or anything that I've missed from the conversation at all?
No, mate. I've enjoyed myself.
Yeah, good. I've enjoyed it, man. It's been really good. It's been good speaking to you again. And like I say, I know it's been a while, but who should we get on next, mate? Who's your recommendation for who we should get on here next?
Oh, there's plenty. I would probably go. I've seen you've got Gary and everyone lined up already.
Yeah, I got Gary lined up. Yeah, I've got a bit of a mixed bag. It's quite a broad. I'm keeping it pretty broad, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Oh, I'd keep it broad. The end user conversations are really good. It's something that mainstream does really well. Obviously, you lot are familiar with mainstream over in
Australia. Yeah,
Australia. They're just coming. So something mainstream does really well is they look at the end user, not so much the vendor. Like, I could tell you stuff all day, every day, but I come from a place of being an end user first. I was the guy deploying them, testing them, getting out there. Yeah, granted, I now work for a company that sells them, but at the same time, it's a trust thing. So I'd stay with the end user, see what info you can get out of them, because they're going to know the pain points on the shop floor. So even when you look at like where you are, industrial edge, which can mean many things, edge compute, what's coming, what's that, all that type of stuff. They're the people on the ground. You know it well. Boots on the ground are going to give you the best information.
Yeah, 100%. No, good. Awesome, Luke. Mate, thank you for your time. It's been good, man. It's been a good conversation.
I'll tell you who I want to see. Get Rushy on.
Rushton, yes, I've got him lined up. He's I need to message him and get a date locked in.
I can listen to that guy talk all day.
I know, yeah. We'll definitely get Simon on there. Don't worry about that. We'll ask him some good questions, I'm sure. Maybe not about football teams. All good, mate. Luke, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
No dramas, Joe. Enjoy it, mate, because these things can get stressful.
Yeah. I'm starting to notice that. I've just realised how much of a beast editing a podcast is going to be. So,
you go and speak to Chris Hallam at UE Systems. He did his last year. He did 8 pods, mate. He was knackered by the end of it.
Yeah. I've done 3 and I think I've already hit the wall. So I'll keep going though. I think that's the key, right? I've got to be consistent. I think that's what I challenge myself to do, right? Try and be consistent with it. Just do it. Get one out each week. Keep plugging away. Yeah.
Content is king, mate. Shorten them down.
Yeah, it is these days.
Shorten them down, snip them out, change the conversation, do 2 in 1.
Spot on, man. Yeah, you're spot on. Cheers, Luke. Have a good day, man.
Ciao, buddy.
Appreciate it. Take care.